New Orleans Saints 19, Washington Commanders 20. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are reacting to the heartbreak in the Superdome. The backdrop is, after further review, Matt Moscona. New hat alert for the boy. Shout out Hendricks Motorsport. Boom. Let's in the comments below. Let's get some love for the new hat. Going to be unveiling a bunch of new hats around the holiday season. Can't wait. I got to keep up with Spencer Rattler and his hat game. All right. We've talked about it a little bit. Let's go ahead and hear what Matthias has to say about the game. We'll react along the way, like only I can do. Kick your feet up, unless you're not wearing shoes. If that's the case, $19.99 on OnlyFans, what are you even doing? You know what I'm saying?
Was all on the quarterback, and that's why you made the change at halftime. He's not going to say it. I get it, because he's the head coach of the team, and he's certainly not going to pin it on one player. And I completely understand and respect that. He's not worried about what you or I think. He's worried about maintaining his locker room and the confidence of the team and all that sort of stuff. And I get it, and I respect it. But Jake Haener was atrocious.
That is not even doing it justice. Matt is being a nice guy right here. Nice guy Matt, okay? Because, I want you, let me show you something. So a lot of people were like, well, this wasn't the worst game I've ever seen. I mean, Nathan Peterman threw 5 interceptions and a half. Yeah, he did. Look at Nathan Peterman, 6 for 14, 66 yards, 5 interceptions, and a half of football. And look at Jake Haener, okay? Haener, 4 for 10. He had a, he had a quarterback rating of 16.2. Peterman, 17.9. Peterman had a higher rating than Jake Haener. Well, he's not Ian Book. I mean, come on. Like, Ian Book was really bad. Okay, let's take a look at that. Ian Book compared 12 of 20, 135 yards. Jake Haener could still be playing. He wasn't getting to 135 yards. 2 picks, got sacked 8 times, QBR 2.8, rating of 40.6. Compare that to Jake Haener. Compare that to, he had a higher QBR than Haener, and he tripled his quarterback rating. Not to mention, like I said, Book did throw for 135 yards. So, I think somehow it's actually being downplayed how bad Jake Haener was. Jake Haener was worse than Nathan Peterman, who threw 5 interceptions and a half of football. He was worse than Ian Book, who after this game took his shoes off, left him in the middle of the field, and no one has seen from him since. All right? Let's not downplay it. What Haener did in that half on Sunday was, it made me jealous of Helen Keller. I'm not going to lie. It had me thinking, well, man, maybe it's not that bad. Because watching that, seeing that, was an affront to me as a person, physically.
He was atrocious. The decision to start Jake Haener cost you a football game, period. Period. Your defense...
Great point, Matthias. This is another thing I've been seeing. I've been seeing Haener was an Allen. Haener was an Allen guy. It's like, brother, Allen wasn't my man. Allen didn't choose to start Jake Haener on Sunday. Let's not underplay this. Starting Jake Haener on Sunday, that decision, the 2-year buildup, watching him day in and day out, watching him in preseason, watching him in training camp, watching him wherever, that is a failure in the organization. That is an F-. To make the decision to go to Rattler in the second half, A+. To decide to play Haener, whoever is making those decisions, whoever is evaluating the talent, maybe that's why the roster isn't very good. Because maybe whoever's evaluating the talent has got some things mixed up. Because unless Jake Haener just had an all-time vomit moment where he, got out there, didn't play like himself, was lost in the sauce, unless that's the case, you got to really question how we're evaluating people, that he was even considered to play, that he was even in consideration to start this game, much less they said, let's let him play.
Your defense sacked Jaden Daniels 8 times. You held Washington to 20 points. Rattler rallied you in the second half. You got a few breaks. They missed a field goal, a 54-yarder that would have basically put it out of reach. But you lost because of the decision to start Jake Haener. He was atrocious.
Yeah, defense was really good. I mean, 4.4 yards a play, well below average. Held Jane Daniels to 66 yards, I believe, on 11 carries. One of them for like 30 yards. So really, you probably held him to like 10 for 45 or something, which not bad. You held Brian Robinson to virtually nothing. Yeah, I mean, pretty solid effort from the defense. So, yeah, I mean, this was a legitimate performance. This wasn't like Philadelphia where the score was a little bit fugazi. Like, this was a A+ effort from the defense.
I literally could have been as effective as Jake Haener. I mean, yeah. You ran 14 plays in the first half.
That is not hyperbole or hyperbole, as some of my friends say. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but I could have absolutely done better than what Jake Haener did. We were talking about it in the stands. At that point, whatever your first read is, take the snap, hit your back foot, and throw. Don't even look. Don't read. Don't do progression. Just hit your back foot, throw to a spot, and that would have been better than what Jake Haener did.
You were shut out. You can't do worse than being shut out. What an incredibly emotionally conflicting game. I did not expect the New Orleans Saints to win that game. I picked against them. I thought it would be one-sided, and for a half,
yeah, agreed.
It was one-sided.
Yeah.
The New Orleans Saints had 38 yards of offense in the first half. 38 net yards of offense.
And almost all of that was a Alvin Kamara, like, Texas route. I mean, that was like a 25-yard completion. So you take that away. I mean, think about how bad Haener's numbers and the stats and all the offensive numbers and all that stuff. Again, we averaged 1.9 yards per play in the first half, and that's with a big completion to Kamara.
Throughout the course of those 3 hours on Sunday, I felt all of the emotions.
Yeah, same. Same.
It was embarrassing watching the first half.
Yes.
Where you ran 14 offensive plays. Jake Haener was anemic. You had 38 yards of offense at the end of the first half. That's embarrassing to watch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It was encouraging watching the defense, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yes.
I mean, that's a defense.
The run defense specifically. Like, the run defense was 32nd in the NFL, DVOA. So the fact that, like, when you're 32nd in the NFL in something, you're hoping just to have an effort. When you are playing that good consistently over the course of the entire game, that is way more of an effort. Like, that is something else. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to Joe Woods, kudos to whoever is getting the run defense going, because absolutely that was absolutely encouraging from the defense. Demario Davis looked like prime Super Saiyan 3 Demario Davis, and yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about the defensive performance on Sunday.
That was on the field for 41 minutes. 60-minute game, your defense was out there for 41 minutes, and they held a really dynamic offense to 20 points. You got 8 sacks. How about Demario Davis playing his ass off?
I mean, like, I hate using points as a gauge for a good defensive effort. Like, what about 4.4 yards per play in 40 minutes? 40. Like, the Commanders basically played 2 games. I mean, they played twice as much football as the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. Their offense was out there 2x. So the defense wasn't just good in spots. The defense was good for an extended period of time. 4.4 yards a play. Yards per carry is probably like 3.6, something like that. 3.5 yards a carry. 8 sacks. I mean, what a wasted good performance.
How old is Demario Davis? Do we have to keep reminding ourselves of this? I think Demario Davis is creeping into the territory of being my favorite New Orleans Saint of all time.
Wow.
Wow. My youth, if I could take a brief diversion here.
Sure.
Dalton Hilliard was my first ever favorite player in anything. I'm not old enough to have watched Dalton Hilliard with LSU, but Dalton Hilliard rocking the 21 with the Saints was my first favorite player in anything ever.
Isn't it crazy to think about, like, your favorite player, your first favorite player, or your first favorite team, or your first favorite, like, person you're rooting for, or, and then you think about, like, all the reasons of why they're your favorite player, or, you know, maybe you were gifted a jersey, or maybe you met them, maybe you got an autograph from them, maybe you saw them on TV in a very special moment where they hit a walk-off home run, or they make a catch, and all of a sudden they're your favorite. Or it's crazy to think about, even like with wrestling and stuff, or a TV show, like who your favorite wrestler is, like your first favorite wrestler, who's your first favorite character of a TV show. And it's so interesting because there's no context. Like, a kid has no context for why they like whoever. You know, like when you're older, it's like, and you're watching a show, like when you're older and watching Game of Thrones, like you're an adult, you're making decisions of why someone's your favorite character. You have some life lessons and whatever. But when you're 7 years old and you're like, no, Jeff Blauser is my favorite my favorite Brave, or you're watching, you know, and just like King Griffey Jr. is my favorite player. Why? And it's just like I don't know, like something you can't even explain when you're that young, because it just happens. Like, so let me know who your first favorite player or wrestler or TV show, whatever. Like, I remember back in the Ninja Turtle days, I was all about Raphael. All about Raphael. You know, rude but cool. I don't know why. Like, what makes... Because some kids, they like Leonardo. Some kids like Donatello. Some like Michelangelo. But I was a huge fan of Raphael. Power Rangers. Big fan of Tommy. But really kind of, I guess, kind of like the anti-hero kind of a vibe here. I'm trying to think who my favorite player, my first favorite player was. I know I was a big Barry Sanders guy. I mean, how could you not be? Watching him, he was awesome. I mean, like, he was incredible. I grew up South Mississippi, so obviously Brett Favre was a huge deal throughout the 90s. So I loved Favre, rooted for Favre. Watched every Saints game. The Saints were horrible. I liked Deuce just because my cousin played football with Deuce at Ole Miss, so I had like a little baby connection. I knew who he was, you know, but not like personally, but I just knew the name, knew from college and all that stuff. But I wouldn't say like Deuce was like my favorite Saint. The Saints were so bad in the 90s. They were just so whatever. I don't know if there was a favorite, to be honest, but Favre was way up there. Has to be Favre.
Like, I've done...
Baseball was like the big thing back then. So King Griffey Jr. probably was like the guy. King Griffey Jr. was, you know, Tiger and King Griffey Jr. and obviously like, you know, MJ in the middle there. But I remember the first couple posters I had on the wall in my room was a Bulls poster, or it wasn't even the Bulls, it was Jordan, and then a Packers poster with Favre and who was the tight end? Mark Tremora? Was that the tight end of the Packers back then? Someone double check me. I think it was like Favre, Tremora. I hope that was his name. If that was not his name, it's like, where the hell did I come up with that?
Done this job long enough and been around enough coaches and athletes and celebrities and all that stuff that you become a little numb to it. I would probably be starstruck if Dalton Hilliard walked through the door right now, because he was my first favorite. And I've still never interviewed or talked to Dalton Hilliard. Weird that that's never happened. You probably could do that. But anyway, DeMario Davis is creeping into that territory of being my favorite New Orleans Saint ever. Is he 35, 36, 40? He's
35.
Is he 42 yet?
No.
Well, when he's 42, he's probably still going to be wrecking dudes, making 14 tackles, just throwing his body out there because he can, and he's awesome. I mean, you're talking about a team going nowhere, organization going nowhere, and that dude is out there at 35 wrecking people with 14 frigging tackles, making every play.
Insane.
I mean, that was encouraging. I mean, it was really exciting watching Spencer Rattler in the second half. Rattler led 4 scoring drives in the second half. Now, Spencer Rattler wasn't awesome. I mean, he completed less than 50% of his passes.
All right, now, let's not focus on, okay, let's go a little deeper. Let's go to everyone's favorite, EPA. Rattler, EPA-wise, was really good. All right. Showed the stats on Monday's videos, I believe. My boy Kevin Cole, unexpected points. You're not following Kevin. Get on Twitter. What are you doing? But Rattler was really good. Rattler was good EPA-wise, so he wasn't elite, but I would say, top of my head, I would say he probably had a top 12-ish performance EPA-wise over the weekend.
So it's not like Spencer Rattler went out there and looked like Josh Allen. It's not like we were talking about an MVP caliber performance.
Yeah,
he was 10 of 21 for 135, a touchdown right there at the gun.
Yep.
And no interceptions. He was plenty good enough. Not great, but plenty good enough. And that's encouraging. It was infuriating that you started Jake Haener to begin with. We talked about that all last week. It was exhilarating that you convert the fourth down as the clock's running. Foster Moreau's got to throw defenders off of him so you can get up to the line of scrimmage and spike it. You get the spike.
Referee has to stop the clock. Oops.
One play into the end zone. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom. Touchdown, Foster Moreau. Going for 2.
Here we go.
Love the decision to go for 2. And then, of course, it was super disappointing that you weren't able to convert and get the win.
Yes.
But then, the conflicting emotion is you're like, but then the draft stuff, and you lost, and whatever. I mean, I get it. It was a very emotionally conflicting 3 hours. But as my point of view,
I'll tell you this. At no point during those 3 hours, at no point walking back to my apartment from the Superdome, at no point Sunday, at no point making the videos Monday, at no point going through the research and looking at everything, at no point today have I taken a single second of solitude and said, or solace, and said, well, at least we got a higher draft pick. Not a single second. I have not taken any positive from the, maybe it was all worth it because we got a higher draft pick.
You consistently hear, as the Saints have been, while not mathematically eliminating, they're still not mathematically eliminated. They would have to win out, and you would have to have the Bucs lose out over the final 3. It's not going to happen. But
correct. That will be squashed Monday night.
They're not mathematically eliminated. But for as long as they have kind of been out of it, my contention is what I am hoping to see here over the remainder of the season is what are we learning about this team?
Yes. And that was the whole reason I was saying you got to start Haener. Because you have not seen, imagine. All right. Let me take you in the imagination machine. Sounds like something Michael Jackson would have said. Think about if Rattler starts, and let's say we lose and whatever. There would be a lot of people saying, you don't know what you have in Jake Haener, and maybe we should play Haener. And Haener went to Fresno State, so that means he's the next Derek Carr. Or Haener is undersized, so he's the next Drew Brees 2.0. Or Haener has a chip on his shoulder. Or Haener, when he was at Fresno State, Haener led a 17-point comeback against Colorado State. Or I met Jake Haener, and he's a good guy, so he should play. You still have that contingency. At least you are answering some questions. At least you're answering some questions with this roster moving forward. And that question is, should Jake Haener be developed? Should he be part of the future? Is he a backup? Is he a starter? Can he be the next this? And all those answers are no. Flip side, you have the Spencer Rattler questions. After his first 3 games, you had a lot of people saying, move on from him. This guy sucks. Now, I think you at least have something there. Is he a starter? Is he the franchise? Is he a future whatever? I don't know about all that. I do know that he showed enough that he is a backup. He is a rookie 5th rounder showing a little bit of promise. He's worth it. He's worth a roster spot. He's worth playing in the preseason. He's worth developing. So at least you answered those questions.
This is a continued audition for Darren Rizzi. We are learning if Alante Taylor and Kool-Aid McKinstry are capable of being your boundary corners.
Yep.
We are continuing to watch Taliesin Fuanga and Trevor Penning as starting tackles in the NFL, watching Brian Brzee continue to emerge. There's a lot that we're trying to learn there with this team as it continues to go along. But Spencer Rattler's second half performance is one that you have to keep in mind and acknowledge, because what we're all trying to see is, like, Derek Carr is not leading this team anywhere.
I mean, yeah, even if you like Carr, like let's say you love Derek Carr, okay? Like the time he's old, you know, like he's not going to be here in 5 years. He's not going to be here in 4 years. He's not going to be here in 3 years. So even if you like Carr, and Carr is obviously better than Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener, but the timeline doesn't add up. The team isn't good enough to win in the next 2 years, even if we keep Carr for years 3 and years 4 of his contract. The team is not in a position to truly win in those couple of years. So you have to look past Carr regardless. You have to look past what you're going to do with Derek Carr. You have to look at the future roster building of this team. We know the team organically expires a lot of the contracts within the next 2 years. Players like DeMario Davis, Cam Jordan, Taysom Hill, Tyrann Mathieu, Ryan Ramczyk, Cam Jordan, Derek Carr. We know that, right? So I know, like, people want to win now, and I know a lot of the mindset is like, well, if we just get this one player and this one player, we can win the NFC next year. No, we can't. All right. Sometimes when you're doing a crossword puzzle, no one, like, the fun part is filling out the crossword puzzle. The fun part is not looking at it completed. We're right now in the filling out part. Embrace the journey, embrace the evaluation process, embrace the future, embrace the roster building, because we're going to be on this journey for a few years. So figuring out who is part of that journey, who isn't part of that journey, who is a mediocre player, who's a great player, who's a bad player, that's where we're at right now. And that is a big part of watching these games.
I mean, he is what he is today, the same thing I told you he was the day they signed him. He is a lower, mid, upper, bottom tier starting quarterback in the NFL. Still makes him an elite player in the history of the world, because he's capable of being an NFL quarterback, a starting NFL quarterback. He's just not a good one. So you've got an 11-year sample. Like, you are what you are. 11 years, you are what you are. 11 years into your career. So you're trying to figure out, okay, what's next? Could Rattler or Haener be that? And our whole conversation last week about Spencer Rattler was, I get that it wasn't good those 3 games he started, but how many rookie quarterbacks are good? And especially when they're playing behind a bubblegum and duct tape offensive line without your best weapons. That's the steaming pile of dung Spencer Rattler was handed over those 3 games. At least now, while you still have all your weapons back, at least now he was out there behind your starting offensive line who could actually give him time to operate.
I mean, you know, I mentioned this before, but just the difference between Dante Pettis and MVS compared to Bub Means and Mason Tipton. Like, Rattler, MVS and Cedric Wilson and Dante Pettis are by no means, you know, the next Randy Moss and Chris Carter, but they are NFL level wide receivers, albeit, you know, C tier, but they're at least NFL level wide receivers. Bub Means and Mason Tipton are not NFL level wide receivers. So not only was Rattler playing behind 4th and 5th string offensive linemen, he was throwing to wide receivers who shouldn't be in the league.
Far from perfect. But did you see progress? I did.
Yeah. Sure.
Would you like to see more? I would. I don't think it's going to go super great on Monday Night Football at Lambeau if he draws the start. But he's earned it if Carr isn't back.
yeah, there is 2 quarterbacks on the roster right now. If Carr is back, he'll play. If Carr is not back, there is not a question. Spencer Rattler is who you go with. Jake Haener has removed himself from the group chat. Jake Haener has removed himself from consideration for any starts or any play. He is, and that is a risky run, but it is what it is.
How about your defense? 8 sacks. Sacked Jaden Daniels 8 times. Chase Young, 2 sacks. Cam Jordan, great to see, 2 sacks.
2 sacks.
I look at Chase Young and I go, is that a guy who you're going to commit a long-term deal to? Now, he may choose to sign elsewhere after the season, maybe look to go to a contending team, but he's proving when he's healthy, he is a menace. 2 more sacks against his former team on Sunday. Now, I think Chase Young's going to have a lot of suitors in free agency, but that's a guy the Saints should certainly look at. For the game itself, there are a couple of special teams gaffes it's disappointing. I mean, think about the opening, if you watched the game, if you didn't, the opening defensive possession for the Saints. Commanders are...
Yeah, this was rough. I tweeted, I was like, man, great possession by the Saints. Immediately had the long snapper in the camel clutch and had a penalty, and all of a sudden the defense is right back out
driving, and the defense comes up with a stop. They force a field goal attempt. Washington makes it. Personal foul on Peyton Turner. He contacted the head of the long snapper, which is a personal foul, which was the right call.
Yeah, but he had him in the
play.
Texas Cloverleaf.
Gives them a first down. They end up scoring the touchdown. That's a 4-point swing. At the end of the third quarter, this is an officiating gaffe, which is absolutely inexcusable.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, I've seen some Commanders fans in my comments who are like, if the clock runs at the end of the game like it's supposed to, y'all don't even get the playoffs. It's like, brother, y'all, I mean, my man, do you have amnesia? Like, at the end of the third quarter, you missed a field goal that the refs allowed you to re-kick because they botched the clock.
Washington's lining up for a field goal at the end of the third quarter, clock running. The third quarter expires. And it's not like it was, they snapped it right when it hit 0. It was
4
like
seconds.
1001, 1002, 1003, 1000, snap it. And he misses the field goal. Well, after he misses the field goal, then the officials come and say, the half expired, no try. So he gets another crack at it at the start of the fourth quarter, makes it.
Yeah.
Apparently, the officials were as interested in watching that game as the rest of us. And this is a 7-point swing right there. You gave them 4 because of the penalty, and then they got a gift to get 3 more. I mean, it's your game. Either one of those plays.
Yeah, even just the missed field goal. Like, even just those 3 points, that's the game.
It's your game. As far as
the NFL keeps getting lucky, because if that would happen in the Super Bowl, oh my God. This is just a whatever game on a Sunday. But if this happened in a standalone playoff game or a Super Bowl game, there would be like Supreme Court hearings about this.
There's the 2-point conversion. Play Rizzi, please. 10. Rizzi 10 on the 2-point play call.
Yeah, I mean, every game you have a couple of a few 2-point plays up on the menu. I just felt like the Clint and the offensive staff felt like that was our best call. Listen, didn't work out. It is what it is. So, phenomenal drive getting down there and phenomenal drive getting us in a position to win the game. But unfortunately, we didn't execute that last one.
You're a 5-8 football team. There's a lot of people complaining about the decision to go for 2. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I think it's 100% the right call. I can live with the result.
I don't think it's even a question. I've probably already done 3 hours on this, but I don't think if you can add 1 + 1, like if you have any semblance of an idea of probability or odds or like, there is no benefit to going to overtime. Why would you, like, there's some situations where there is an argument like, okay, do you kick it? Do you not? How much time's on the clock? Are you the better team? Like, whatever. I don't see any argument for not going for it. The only reason you wouldn't go for it is if you are just straight up risk averse. If you just straight up are like, kick it just because I don't want to sweat, I don't want the stress. Unless that's it, Like there is no reason. I mean, real quick again. 2-point conversions are around 55% ish on average. Okay, somewhere between 50 and 55%. A coin toss is 50%. Just that alone, 50 to 55% to win it, or 50% to win the coin toss. Just that by itself is obvious to go for 2. That's not even factoring in, if you do win the coin toss, what is your percentage of scoring a touchdown on that drive? It ain't 50%. Scoring a touchdown on a full-length drive is, like, if I'm being really generous, let's say it's 40%, which, again, that's really generous. But let's say it's 40%. So now you've turned down a 50 to 55% chance to win the game because you would rather a 50% coin toss subheader plus X 40% drive to score. In what universe does that make any sense? And you factor in subheader again. If you lose the 50% coin toss, now you have to stop the Commanders. So you've got like 20 different variables, okay? Or over here, you've got 2 yards and a 55% chance. Oh, and you're, 5 and 8. What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, how in the world does it make sense to kick the extra point? It is one of the most basic math problems of all time. And if you are in the kick the extra point camp, you need to go take a long walk and get you a long look in the mirror.
You're a 5 and 8 football team. Listen, if that was the Super Bowl, you're going to overtime.
Damn it, Matt. You were doing so good. You were doing so good this video. And then you had to say that. If it's the Super Bowl, it's even more of a reason to go for 2. The stakes don't change the math. Like, the stakes don't... Okay, we'll do it again. Let's say you're playing blackjack, okay? Let's say you're playing one hand, you got $5 in the circle, and you got $5 back. Okay, so you got $10 total, you got $5 played, and you have $5 in your hand. And let's say you have 11 facing a 4. You're going to double down, right? It's your last $5. Why the hell wouldn't you double down? You have to double down there. Okay? Does that change if you've got $10,000 up and $10,000 back? No. It's scarier because now you're playing with $20,000, but the math doesn't change. You can't say, well, it's only $10, so I'll double down. And when the math is right, and then say, well, now that it's even more invested, now that there's even more at stake, I'm going to go against the math. That makes no sense. Why, if the stakes are higher, you want to do the more optimal thing even more? That's the advantage. If the stakes are the highest it can be, which would be the Super Bowl, and you have the advantage play, that's even more the time to do it. Again, you can win the Super Bowl by getting 2 yards, or coin toss, defensive stop, return kick, full length touchdown, make field goal. Like, if the Super Bowl is on the line, why would you say, I don't want to do the 2 yards thing. I want to take the route with 40 different variables. One of the variables is you don't even see the ball. One of the variables is You lose the coin toss, they get the ball, they score. Cool. Like, you don't want the ball in your hands to get 2 yards to win it? Makes no sense at all.
You're a 5-8 football team playing a team that's better than you, and everyone knows the adage that the longer a game goes, like if a game goes to overtime, it favors the favorite, the better team, because you continue playing on.
Yes.
And they're better than you. And Washington, make no mistake, is better than New Orleans.
Yeah, so why would you go to overtime in the Super Bowl, Matt? Not to mention, we don't have Alvin Kamara. Our best player isn't even in the game. Why would you want to extend the game?
Playing an overtime period would have favored Washington. In this instance, you had one play. One play.
Isn't that kind of funny, though? Like, it goes to show you just how confusing the 2-point thing is. Like, Matt is explaining why you should go for 2. But then in the same breath, he said, but it was the Super Bowl, I'm kicking the extra point. Even though he has told me and told you, Matt, relax, that the longer the game goes, the more it favors Washington. You're the worst team. You know, overtime favors the favorite. It's one play. You do all this. But even he understands the situation. But it's that natural, old school idea. It shows you how risk averse people are. To where he's explained the whole problem out. He's got 100% on the math test. All he's got to do now is check the box that says go for 2. And he's sitting there going, but if it was a Super Bowl, it'd be big, scary. Me no likey, scary. And he's going to kick the extra point. Even though he's got the whole problem solved. Crazy.
And you have an advantage on a 2-point conversion because you know the play. So go run your best 2-point play. Washington had Foster Moreau, or it was Juwan Johnson. Had him doubled. I don't have the all 22, but if you're watching the game cut, it looked like as Rattler's trying to fit a ball in there to Juwan Johnson, it looked like Marquez Valdes-Scantling was running back to.
That was Kevin Austin. But yeah, Kevin Austin was open in the back of the end zone, but I don't think he was even I don't even think he's even really part of that read. Like, Rattler would have had to have been straight up Patrick Mahomes to be so cool in that moment to say, I'm going to, look in the back of the end zone. I don't think it was ever really a possibility. He was free, but here's something else you'll see on the all-22 is it hit Juwan Johnson in the hands. And is it a routine catch? Is it an easy catch? No. But Rattler hit him in the hands where if he catches that ball, we win the game. So, does Travis Kelce make that catch? Does Brock Bowers make that catch? Does Mark Andrews make that catch? Does Sam Laporta make that catch? Probably. And that's kind of the difference. Like, if this was the Super Bowl and this is the Chiefs and they're running this play, I have a sneaky feeling it doesn't fly off of Travis Kelce's hands into the 8th row. So, yeah, tough catch, no doubt, but you kind of got to have it.
Toward the field and maybe was open because they had Juwan double covered. Maybe Rattler missed it. I don't know. I'm not a coach. I don't know the play call. I don't know what his reads were. It just looked like you had a guy open in the back of the end zone. I have no problem whatsoever with going for 2. I'm bummed it didn't work out. But the flip side of it is, if we keep talking about the emotional conflict here, you lost. And as you're looking toward the draft, it's probably a better thing for you because you're not going anywhere anyway. So you're not mathematically eliminated, but you will be
Green Bay
by next weekend. And, you'll play out the string. I think this said all along. I think the Saints got one more win in them. I think they'll beat. I think they beat Las Vegas in the Dome. I don't think you're winning in Green Bay on Monday Night Football, and I don't think you're beating Tampa, who's going to be playing for the division on their home field Week 18. But for New Orleans, there were positive things to take out of this game, but another loss. And maybe the thing that's going to be most consequential is continuing to look at Darren Rizzi to see if he actually has a legitimate shot of getting this job full time. And I don't know if the answer to that is to the affirmative, but he has certainly has this team playing better, and he's 3-2. As 5 games the interim head coach, he's 3-2, man.
Yeah, I mean, think about how different the conversation would be if we get that. He's 4-1. Like, if we get that 2-point conversion, he's 4-1, and you beat the Commanders in a game like this. I mean, I don't want, I don't want to get out ahead of myself here, but I think if you win this game, like how important that 2-point conversion was, and I keep saying this over and over and over again, Rizzi, every game is a Super Bowl for Rizzi and Kubiak. I think if you get that 2-point conversion and you're 4-1, I think he's the head coach. I think you make the call right there. I don't mean like literally give him the contract, but I think you go 4-1 there. You get the comeback victory. I think that's enough to where if you're the front office, you're thinking, okay, we're locked in. We're going to make him the head coach next year, and we'll see what happens. But because of the loss, I think now he's up against it, where he's either got to beat Green Bay or he's got to beat Tampa, or so that 2-point conversion, like, for all the people who are saying, well, yay, haha, we boosted our draft stock, you might have also lost Darren Rizzi as a head coach. You might have also lost Clint Kubiak as an offensive coordinator. So you be careful what you wish for, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not saying that's incredible, but given the ingredients he has to work with and a 7-game losing streak under Dennis Allen, he's maximizing this team.
Yeah, I think if Rizzi's the coach to start the season, I don't think we're in this spot. I think Rizzi's done a really good job. All right, a long one today. Jeez. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.